Leaders without education create bad habits. Follow me. Let's go. Hello, everybody. This is JJ Hardy with Victory Leadership Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge, the podcast. I'm here today with Aaron Bontrager. Aaron has a company called the Payroll Vault. Aaron, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company?
Sure. Thank you, JJ. My company, the name is Payroll Vault. What it does is a boutique, full-service HR and workforce management company designed to support small business owners. Really, I phrase it as for the small business owner who's comfortable outsourcing their back office functions. So those are the kind of businesses that I work very well with, because I can take that work off their plate so the small business owner can focus on what they want to do, which is growing their business. I came to this place in my career after 17 years working in either not-for-profit or academic healthcare settings, where I enjoyed it, I loved it, but it was time for me to leave the corporate setting and get fully integrated into the community. And this is the way that I felt that I could use my skills to support the communities that I live in.
That's awesome. Well, as you can tell from his background, he's got extensive leadership experience, especially in the human resources, payroll, back office, all that stuff. So he would definitely be a good candidate to support you if you have any back office boutique business needs.
Boutique is to really to focus on the fact that everything is customizable. Like what works for one person isn't going to work for the other person. And the important part for me is that I'm helping you, the business owner, take things off of your plate so you have extra time to either grow your business, I don't know, spend time with your family, or do other things that you would want to do instead of doing those functions that could be outsourced to somebody else.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. I don't know. You said the word boutique, and so I had to capitalize on it. That's just me. Okay. Yep. So today, on this episode of the Victory Leaders Lounge podcast, we're going to talk about servant leadership, which is something that I talk about a lot on my different platforms. And I've actually done a podcast on this before with Chris, which I'm sure you've seen and heard, depending on what platform you're on. I want to define what servant leadership, the style itself, what it is, and then we'll go into conversation about it. So servant leadership style is based on the idea that leaders prioritize serving the greater good. Leaders with this style serve their team and organization first. They don't prioritize their own objectives. Well, so Aaron, when we were talking, you really said that this was a topic that solidified with you. Can you tell me what servant leadership means to you?
Yeah. Servant leadership to me is putting the well-being of the team and the well-being of your employees ahead of your own. Taking the mindset of they thrive, you thrive. So that could be on how that would look is like when you're leading a team of anybody, whether it's employees, colleagues, whatever, everyone has it's as a good servant leader, it's your job to figure out how to put each of those individuals in a situation that plays to their strengths. Like you're identifying what they're good at and putting them in that place, even if that's something that's good for you. Like you realize that the collective good will get you farther along than you leading and pulling everyone from behind. That is how I've always approached it. And I've had a lot of success in that manner, especially dealing with, working with, and leading clinicians, both whether it's from doctors, nurses, anyone in between, because we're working together as a team, and you need to position each of those team members in a place of where they can succeed.
Agreed. So what comes to mind for me when you say all of that is, the whole idea that it is a, you know, what I can do for you, not a what can you do for me mentality. And you are supporting your team, what a lot of people fail to realize, and it's because they're letting their ego get in the way a little bit. But if you support your team and you are constantly helping them achieve their goals in the workplace and get the work done, and constantly have a teach coach mentor approach to things, and you're supporting them the way you should,
Mm-hmm.
the job will get done. When you are focused on your own personal objectives and you make it seem like it's all about you all the time, that's not sustainable. It'll only work for a little while, and people see through that crap. They really do. And so to make sure that you are thinking about them before you think about you, there's really just a big mindset shift that you have to go through to make sure you're supporting these people the right way.
Right, absolutely. It's about, servant leaders are constantly looking into the future and constantly looking at foresight and trying to position their team again to be in places of success, and then empowering those team members to take advantage of those opportunities. Um, a servant leader isn't, when it's time to celebrate or when the job is done, the leader will be in the background, because for positive news, for positive outcomes, you're rewarding your staff, you're rewarding your team. That's the team accomplishing that goal. The only time the servant leader will be at the forefront is when things didn't go according to plan. At that time, it's the responsibility of the servant leader to lead by being in the front, by saying, I didn't do this correctly, protecting your team, and then making changes for the future. Even by doing that, you're empowering your staff or your team or whoever you're leading, because they are seeing firsthand that you're willing to promote and celebrate their successes, and then also protect them in situations that the plan didn't go according to plan and you didn't achieve the appropriate outcome.
I was listening to everything you were saying there, and I think you pointed out almost every principle of leadership when you were talking right there.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of created my own, but I mean, if you really think about it, having vision, taking ownership, having integrity, doing the right thing by your people, even when nobody's paying attention, communicating effectively. I think that's the biggest thing really that you pointed on, because how do you understand where your people are supposed to be based off of their strengths and their weaknesses? Well,
You
it's
got to
you have to
learn.
get to know them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, my retention rates are horrible. Well, the first question that I've always asked people is, how often do you talk to your team?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have scheduled conversations where you talk about your goals and let them know where they need improvement and get their feedback on how well you're serving them? I mean, people
Yeah.
don't do these things.
Right. It's funny you mentioned the retention piece and keeping good employees around. That's one of the key topics that continue to come up in the HR landscape right now is retention. And the ones who do well in that realize employees don't, you can't keep an employee based off of wages alone, because someone's always going to offer that extra dollar or that extra benefit or things like that. The way you keep your employees is they feel respected and empowered. So you give them a fair and competitive rate. You give them, or a wage. You give them benefits. You make sure they feel supported and taken care of. But it's those intrinsic values. It's
Mhm.
those personalized conversations. It's knowing if they have a family, how's their partner doing? How are their kids doing? It's if they're passionate about a certain hobby, making sure you check in on how that's going. It's those extra personal connections. When you look at businesses that have or that have high retention rate, low turnover, when you start talking to those employees, they all have a sense of empowerment and are invested in the mission of the business, whatever it is. I mean, it could be something as simple as um, a food truck where they feel passionate about the food they're cooking, and so they want to stay around. Or it could be something much bigger, like a not-for-profit organization that's designed to serve the community. The common themes when you look at those retention rates, or at least when I'm talking to prospective clients and they're talking about how can we improve these retention rates, the first thing I look at is, okay, tell me about your leadership style. And I ask the managers, like, tell me about your employees. Give me a profile of each one of them. What's good about them, what's bad, or where their gaps are, what you should be doing to improve on them. And in my experience, what I have found, the organizations that have low retention and high turnover don't have that knowledge. Their leaders don't have that knowledge or ability to connect with their employees. And so now, once you know that, now as an HR professional, now I can kind of design my strategies around. I mean, we'll never be able to offer enough wages to keep people. You'll still always get that turnover. So now let's focus on educating and empowering the manager so that they have the personalized skills they need to build that morale, or to increase that morale, if you will.
That's interesting because it was a Forbes magazine. I wish I had the exact figure, but I think it was something like 86% of employees say that they will stay with a job, stay in a job if the culture and the leadership is good. And in that article I read, there were tons of reasons that an employee will stay or leave with a company, and none of those reasons they stay have anything to do with their wage. It has everything to do with the company culture, the leadership of their management team, and feeling like they're included and empowered.
Yep, absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
I don't have any articles at the top or at my fingertips, but to your point, I know one of the most prevalent reasons why people leave an organization has nothing to do with their job, has nothing to do with the company. It has everything to do with their manager.
I personally feel like nobody shows up to work to have a hard time every day. Everybody needs the money to live.
Right.
But, I would say we spend probably a good 80% of our lives working. So I think that the reason that I started my business is because I feel like if you educate people in the leadership principles and they're able to properly implement those things into their organization, then your employee retention rates will stay good, and it will create an environment that people want to work in. When people don't really I mean, you're always going to complain about something. That's just human nature, where people complain. You can't completely stop that, but I mean, if you can limit the amount of complaints that are in your office, just by practicing servant leadership and having a good system for communicating and all of those things, then people are probably going to be more likely to stay. And people get caught in these old school mentalities where they think everything has to be their way and everything has to be done in a way where they make all the decisions and all these other things, where there's like a person at the top that is micromanaging everybody at the bottom. And I still see it all over the place. Empower your people. Allow them to. People will surprise you. Yeah, you have to give a little bit of trust to your managers and your down trace people. But when you do that, it won't work at first. It never, ever does. If you go straight from a micromanaging environment to now you're trusting everybody, you have to give it time. But if you do, people will say, oh, I don't know what happened to this guy, but he all of a sudden cares about us. And then, you know, slowly your culture will change and people will probably enjoy being there a lot more. And instead of fearing you at the top because of what you're going to say, they're probably going to start communicating with you more too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I mean, to your point about there's always going to be something we don't want to do, or there's always going to be a complaint. It's it's pivoting that focus and that complaint to it's not internal. It's we're in this together. So we're complaining about this external factor or this external variable. Well, that's actually building more morale and success, because now we're in the weeds together. Sorry for my dog.
Don't worry, mine might start barking here in a couple minutes.
Okay. You're creating this team mentality, like where we're in the weeds together, and so now we're rallying around each other to have us all thrive through the event.
You know, when I served in the military, when we were doing things, and it doesn't even have to be in a combat situation, right? If we were doing things that were horrible, like 20 of us going out and doing area beautification in the rain, you know, we would all we called it embrace the suck, because we would all have to go out there and embrace that together. And after we got over our initial complaints, we all got to work and we started laughing and having a good time and everything else together. But it's okay to do things that you don't want to do. But when you have a team of people that they don't have to be friends, and actually they don't 100% even have to like each other, but if they get along and they have a good relationship, then it's going to be, they're going to come together when the stuff gets real. And that's really what you want when you're building a team.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The military, the teachings and principles of military leadership there's so much overlap when you look at that versus healthcare versus even the food service industry. The successful kitchens, the successful military squads, they're in this together. They're embracing, like you said, they're embracing the suck.
I love that because I love that phrase.
It's catchy. It is a catchy term because it's also very telling. Like, it puts you in that mindset of, this isn't going to be fun. This isn't going to be pleasant. I don't want to do it, but I'm here with my team, and I'm sure as hell not going to let them down by shrinking away from my responsibilities.
Right.
And as a servant leader, when you find yourself and your team in that role or in that situation, that's the perfect time for a servant leader to step up and demonstrate their competency and their leadership skills, where it's pulling that team together in that moment of suck and bringing them together rather than pushing them away or letting them wander off and work in their own individual paths. If
true.
A servant leader, again, this is my preference. These are my tactics. Those are where I'm doubling down on really bringing together my team, on making sure each one of them knows that they're appreciated, that they're valuable, and also that I'm putting them in a position of strength, of their strength, so that we can get through this as quickly as possible and do it in a way that we can be done and move on to the next thing.
You're right. And, you know, another thing that I have found, and, you know, when you're in a management position, you can't always do this. Or I can't say that, but you can't do it every single time a dirty job comes up. But once in a while, step out of your office and get down in the weeds and you know, get your hands dirty with these guys while they're doing these crappy jobs. They will see that not only will he give us all these tasks all the time, but when things get really horrible, you know, JJ steps out of the office and he gets his hand dirty, and hands dirty, and oh, by the way, I noticed that he's complaining with us.
Oh yeah.
So he doesn't like it any more than we do. He's out here, being the example. He's doing what he's got to do to make sure his team knows that he's not above any task.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I want to point out, and I want to address something you said before that. So not all leaders in the military are wonderful. Not all leaders in healthcare are wonderful. Everyone in every field, I think that if they take the time to educate, they teach wonderful leadership skills and principles. But I will say that probably between 40 and 60% of people in any organization actually practice those without somebody making sure they're constantly following the teach, coach, mentor model and pushing these guys to really embody these values and principles. So, it a lot of, unfortunately, what happens is people have backgrounds and they have, I call them icebergs, which is you see something on the surface, but they have a lot of values that are way deeper than that. And, sometimes you have to train the negative things out of people in order to create a positive mindset, because people automatically think that other people are just not going to do what they're supposed to do, or all of these negative things that they think about people. So it really takes work. And I would say about 80% of people that are like that, if you work with them and show them that you're willing to help them out of that, they will work themselves out of that. And actually, even if they don't stay in your organization, if you help them with those leadership principles, they'll be a better person for it. And they'll help their family, their future organizations, and all the people that work for them as a result of you taking that extra time to put into that person. And keep in mind, I'm saying into that person. You are putting time into that person, which means you're serving them. It's not
you are
about
investing.
you. Yeah. Yep. You're taking time away from your personal interest and making sure you are making other people successful. And that's really what servant leadership is all about.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you just picked up on it. How people traditionally get to be in positions of management is they are technically experts in their field.
I was going to touch on that if you didn't, for sure.
I mean, how you get to be to the top of the food chain, so to speak, or at the position where you can compete or apply or pursue a management opportunity, is because you're technically an expert or a superior to the majority of your other team,
operating at a higher level.
Yeah. The downside on that is those skills that got you to where you are not going to translate into success in management, because now it has nothing to do with, I shouldn't say nothing, it has minimal to do with your technical skills, and now it's all interpersonal relationships. And now you can't just do everything by yourself, which as a technician, you're able to kind of do that. You're like, okay, I'll just take care of this, and you can do it faster, quicker, smarter, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Well, when you get to management, you can't do that. You have to, if you're going to succeed in your role, and if you're going to move the needle in whatever objective you're trying to accomplish, it's about motivating and empowering your staff to get them to act on your behalf. And what works well for you to get to that stage was being a competent and technical expert in your field, but now it's something completely different.
Yeah.
And that's where servant leadership is so successful, but also is a skill that needs to be trained or taught. And so like your role and what you do with empowering and coaching those technicians and teaching them those interpersonal management styles, that whichever one that works for them. There's many management styles out there that all have various success. The important one is you find one that is central to your personality so that you can own it and be genuine in how you work with it. That's where your role becomes so successful and so imperative, because you need to reteach these individuals that what worked to get them here isn't the same thing that's going to work to get them to the next step.
Yep. You got to take your blinders off, because you're not that person that has to focus on their daily tasks anymore. Now it's about the entire team, and by the way, you can't, all those people on the team that you might have been friends with, you're going to have to take that relationship and kind of, though you want to have a positive impact with your team by having a good working relationship with them, you want to kind of put that off to the side and think of everything as a collective, because it's all about the greater mission of the business and the team, more than it is about, what you're doing every day or what Joe Snuffy over there is doing every day. Because a lot of times you're going to have to make decisions based on the collective good and not just the individual good. And I think that's, in my opinion, that is the biggest difference and the biggest struggle between going from execution level employee or technician or expert, all the things that you just said, to manager or supervisor, or a lot of times business owner where they have employees, is, they don't understand that the responsibility changes, and then what that looks like. You're not responsible for your daily tasks. You're responsible for the overall task completion, and now you have to understand what everybody else is doing. And just like you said earlier in the conversation, you have to communicate with people, understand their strengths and weaknesses, not just, hey, that guy's a jerk sometimes, I don't want to talk to him. Well, as a leader, you can't think about that anymore. You're going to have to talk to that guy no matter what, or find another guy, because you have to work with everybody on your team. Otherwise, the tasks will start slowly falling apart. And, I talk to my kids about the whole pyramid, right? If you take out one piece of the pyramid, it's going to collapse. So you need to make sure the entire foundation of that pyramid is strong, and that foundation is communication and relationships.
Yep, absolutely.
And that is really the biggest thing that people need to be trained on. And honestly, just the whole concept of servant leadership, where it's not about you anymore, it's about everyone else. People just don't get it. They understand it, but in order to shift your mindset from execution level employee to manager, you really have to constantly be thinking about what you can do for others. And if you're that supervisor, or maybe that first time manager, that's not just, looking at your team. You need to constantly be communicating with your boss and your peers, because you have to have vision for everything that's happening, so that you know what's coming next, and you're constantly planning and executing, because you owe your team that. If you don't know what's coming next, if you don't have vision for the future in your specific role in the company and the team's role that you lead, you're gonna slowly lose credibility, because, well, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And you're going to, especially in these larger organizations, when you're a frontline supervisor or a mid-level supervisor, now servant leadership or just your management style has to be you're having to focus on now 3 different avenues. You have downwards, which is managing your staff. So you need, to your point, you need to be strategic. You need to understand, you need to have your finger on the pulse of the morale of the entire team. Then you have to have informal leadership, because you're going to be one, if you're a frontline supervisor or a mid-level supervisor, you're going to be one of many mid-level supervisors. So now you have to influence change based off of getting those other colleagues of yours to buy into whatever your vision is. And then you also have to look upwards. Like you should be managing your boss as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that require you can utilize the same tactics and traits in servant leadership in all three of those realms. Like as a frontline or as a mid-level supervisor, when I was in the healthcare world, I was constantly thinking about what can I do to make my boss look good? How can I put him in a position of success? And that's something where you're managing, and so you're now managing three different, very distinct groups, and you only have control over one of them. So having that, again, what I have found, having that servant leadership style, you're competent, you're focused on communication, and you're focused on systems, and you're doing it in a way that is built through or grounded through interpersonal relationships.
That's it. Interpersonal relationship. That's the glue that holds the entire business together. And
Mm-hmm.
to make a first time leader or a mid-level manager, correct? Yeah, I've done all those roles as well. In order for them to be successful, you're right. It's understanding where you fit with all of your other mid-level managers and
Yep.
constantly communicating. I mean, just have the conversation where you say, "Hey, is there anything I can do to support you?" Just regularly say that. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to give all your time to your fellow mid-level managers, but
No.
understanding where you fit in the bigger scheme
Mm-hmm.
of things, part of that is, and having vision for what's coming next is, knowing the whole mission. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
know the whole mission, then you're not going to be able to, well, the task that you're executing at your level, there's always going to be something missing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. That's a skill. And it's because of servant leadership. You have to have that mentality because you have to
Yep.
go to people and say, "Hey, am I doing everything I can within that thing you said you needed help with? Am I squaring you away properly?" Or even with your boss, you said it already. "Hey, other than this report, and this report, is there anything else I can be doing at my level to make sure that you're able to execute your job with the things that I'm able to support you with?" I mean,
Yep.
if you do all of those things, both with your peers and your seniors, the way you lead your teams, it's gonna show because everything you do is based on the greater good of the overall mission. And that's
Yep.
really the biggest difference between those guys that are executing their daily tasks at the ground level to the people that, it doesn't matter if you're a first time supervisor or a mid-level manager. Either way, I mean, the job is the same. You still have to figure out where you fit and what's coming next on a regular basis. I mean, if there's say you're in a grocery store and there's a huge reset or something coming up, and you have to put together you have to completely transform one section of the grocery store, and you're not paying attention to that,
Mm-hmm.
your team is going to look like a bag of crap because you're
Yeah.
the one team that's not paying attention to that big thing that's coming up.
Yep.
So, yes, I agree. Yeah, I know the way I talk is a little bit unconventional. I apologize, but
Hey, I don't care one
good,
bit.
good.
Don't
But
care one bit. I've heard worse, been in worse. Like it doesn't matter.
yeah, fair enough. I always say I've heard worse things from better people.
Yep.
All right. Well, I mean, we're kind of at the top of our towards the end of our podcast recording here. Aaron,
Okay.
is there anything else that you would like to say now that we're getting ready to wrap this up? Just as whether it's about your business or anything, last comment you would like to say about servant leadership?
No, I mean, really, servant leadership again is about empowering your staff. And I would hammer the fact that what got you to a position of leadership, those characteristics and skills are not the ones that are going to take you to the next step or make you a successful manager. And because of that, that's no fault of your own. It's no fault of the managers. It's just the way the system has been constructed. So when you find yourself at new management role, or if you're hiring a new manager or a first time manager, you need to know it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for teaching, for coaching, and to reach out to people. And such as like JJ yourself with the leadership coaching that you do, or in my case, reaching out and getting fractionalized HR support, because there are people who are skilled in this that can help you teach those people, whether it's teaching that frontline or that first time manager, or whether it's refining your management style. For you to succeed, you need to be vulnerable enough to ask for help.
Yep.
And then trust that the help that you get will be from people that want you to thrive.
Yep.
And so that would be the message I would leave with everyone is it's to be successful in management is completely different than being successful as a technician or a worker. It's all about that interpersonal communication. And that is not something, in my experience, I have found that has been successfully trained or even valued. It's becoming more and more valued in the last like decade, but it's not something that has been trained at the college level, graduate level, or even beyond that. It's really you're almost you're deep into the weeds of your career. And so you need to find those outside resources that can help you refine your management tool or your management style.
Thank you. And I would like to echo that in saying, what got you here will not get you the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Always, always. And it doesn't matter what career management field you're in, it doesn't matter. Always look to be the best in your field. And in addition to that, if you accept a leadership position, make sure you're constantly learning and growing so that you can be better for yourself, better for your team, better for your organization.
Yep.
I will say that I've known Aaron for a little while. Payroll Vault is a great company because, well, it's his company and he's kind of small like me. So, I mean, he makes it, and I would trust him to help me with any of my stuff once I get to the point where I start hiring other people. So, I highly recommend that any of you do the same. HR and payroll support. Yeah. If you enjoy all the content that you see, both on YouTube here, on Spotify, anywhere that you see my ugly mug, make sure you like it, subscribe to it, share it, look at it and give it a thumbs up. I don't care what you do, but just make sure you're showing support so that I can keep on growing this channel, because I don't just do it for me. I do it for all of my guests as well. I want everybody that I bring onto the show to get extra visibility. And that's really the goal of my business, my podcast, everything that I do is I want to help people get better in what they do. So this is JJ Hardy and Aaron Bontrager here on the Victory Leaders Lounge. I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you, JJ.